name's Jason Beres. I'm with Infragistics. We've done a bunch of different FinJS events. We're happy to be back. It's our first one post-COVID, so very exciting. Infragistics is a 30-plus-year-old company. We build UI components, and we've moved into other spaces like BI, analytics, app building, things like that. I'm going to show you some of that today in a demo. So we're going to do a little overview of some things that I'm going to show, basically around our app builder, around Figma integration. How many people here use Figma? Okay, Figma happens to be here, cool. So great, you don't have to use Adobe XD anymore. That's good news. And then how all this works with the OpenFin FDC3 ecosystem, which is part of my demo. So the idea behind our product app builder is it really does accelerate that app delivery, which I think you heard here today in the panel. You don't want to write REST API calls. You don't want to redo the same work over and over again. The machine can do this for you. But how do you do that really well? You do that really well by using tooling that will help you accelerate this. And one of those tools, oops, I don't know what happened to my mouse, there we go, is our app builder product, but used in conjunction with things like Figma can really accelerate how you look at app building. But the one key thing, and I think this was part of the panel that wasn't talked about, was design systems. And how do you actually build software correctly today? You don't leave it up to the developer. You need a UX process, you need UX teams, you need to build out design systems that can then inform how all of these components are built. So when you have sprawl across the enterprise, you can always go back and say, hey, our design system says this. So I know a lot of the big banks have like 100-page design systems that are, maybe 1,000-page design systems. But when you stick to it, it does make a huge difference in how you can deliver experiences in these larger applications. So the big thing is, Gartner, Forrester, all the analysts tell us that by 2025, 40%, and now I think it's going to be 50, 60, 70% of your job will be done using low-code tools. So there's no denying it. You can't slow it down. It's going to happen. But that low-code tool doesn't mean you're out of a job. It just means that something's happening a little bit faster, maybe a little bit easier. And your low-code tool might be App Builder. It might be Figma. It might be like Xpero's components that you plug into OpenFin. It doesn't mean that it's avoiding code. But the big thing is with these tools is you don't have to have this tension between design and development. So designers and developers should be working together. They should be driving these outcomes because it's really about the business outcome versus the best technology platform or the best code or whatever the loudest developer architect in the room wants. And with tools like App Builder, coupled with things like Figma, is you eliminate that handoff. So if something's designed, then you will get code out of the other end. And that's really the unique benefit that we bring to the market. And the only way this can happen, no matter what product you're using in the whole wide world, is with a design system. Because if you don't have a design system, there's really nothing that you can base these outcomes on. So one of the things I'm going to show you today is how you can build these applications with Figma, with our app builder, with our components, and then integrate OpenFin containers, integrate FDC3 to deliver experiences across the enterprise. So with that, let's get to a demo. Cool, the slides didn't take that long. What I'm going to do here is show Figma. So I'm not a Figma expert, I'm not a designer, but Figma is pretty easy to use. It's drag and drop. And what you see in a lot of these low-code tools today is they all kind of look a lot like Figma, or they look like Sketch. So you have on the left-hand side a panel of some sort, on the right-hand side a property editor of some sort, and in the middle is where you're doing your canvas, where you're designing. A little bit different than maybe Visual Studio, where the property panels are very intense. If you're doing .NET applications, you have hundreds or thousands of property editors to tweak and configure. What we've done here over the last few years is we've simplified the experiences that you have. But in this case, what I'm highlighting here is that this is a real application. It's built in Figma with a design system. It's built with our design system, which is a material-based design system, but we've also brought in other things like Fluent with it. So if you have like a tighter feel on your application or you want that fluent look and feel, you can use Fluent, you can use Figma, etc. Or I'm sorry, Material. We have Bootstrap. But over on the right-hand side are all of the components that make up the design system. So just like a toolbox in Visual Studio, you're dragging and dropping elements of your design system, and they are building out screens for you. So I'm not going to go into a tutorial here because someone, spent time building this guy earlier. So let me make sure I'm not deleting the whole thing without having the Figma guys come up. Oh, Control-Z actually works really well. Oh my God. There we go. All right, so now here's the magic. So we built a plugin for Figma, which will take this design and actually build an Angular app, a web component app, a Blazor app, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to say create new app, and I'm going to give it my OpenFin workspace here. This is going to our product called App Builder, so I have a workspace called OpenFin. We're going to call this Trader Demo 22. You can see I've done it a few times. And so this goes up to the cloud. It's parsing this file from our common language model and then generating an application. So now my application is ready. I'm going to copy this link. I'll go back to my screen here. Oh, and you can see Trader App Demo 22 is already there. So now it's in my OpenFin workspace. This is what we just did inside of Figma. Now I'm going to open this guy up. I'll make it a little bit bigger, 100%. Slide this over a bit, and you can see that pixel perfect. Everything that you just saw in Figma is now in App Builder. You can see my DOM here on the left. App Builder has a full toolbox, 60 plus controls. So in the same vein, if I want to take something like, a grid, and I want to drag this onto my screen, I can do that. I'm going to do that on another screen, but I just wanted to show you that. You don't have to build REST APIs. We fully support REST to do data binding and all the other good stuff. Now, this doesn't build out everything that I need. So I needed to go and add a couple more screens and do some data binding. That took maybe another hour of work to do. But what I ended up with was this application. So this is a single page app here. This is the same thing I built in Figma. There's no smoke and mirrors here. I can show you in the back if you want to see it later. But I added a couple other pages. So I added a card repeater control. I bound it to some data. I have a couple things for dashboard views that I'm going to actually just implement in my Angular app. I've got another dashboard I'm going to show you in my FDC3 playground. I've got a screen here with a grid, and then I've got an empty screen. So on my empty screen, what I want to highlight really quick is how easy it is to do some of this stuff. So I just hit Control-E. I want to add a grid to my screen. I already have some REST calls here, but I've got this FinTech 75, which has a positions table, and it's not a lot of data, but it's just kind of getting the point across. And now if I want to go ahead and add some features like advanced filtering, I'll just add all my features here: exporting, paging, row actions, row editing, grouping, hiding, moving, pinning, resizing, column summaries. And I actually never really liked paging, so I get rid of that. Doesn't look good. So there you go, just like that. I'll hit run. There's my grid. On the right-hand side, you can see I've got the code that it just generated. This happens to be web components code, so browser agnostic. But if I flip over to Angular, it does the same thing in Angular, builds out the TypeScript, the CSS, and if I want to do Blazor WebAssembly, Blazor Server, it does it. We had IBM evaluate our product. They said their architects, it passed the sniff test. They could not write code better than we could write, or I mean, I'm sure someone could. But the point is, tools like this always get knocked because they're a black box and it's crappy code and you can't do it. Well, our whole purpose in life is to give you a tool that then you publish this code, and actually, let me cancel this and change this to Angular, and I'll publish this, and I'm going to change this to OpenFin Trader. Something's wrong with my mouse here. This is the, let's try this again. Things aren't clicking for me. But anyway, I'm not going to run it, or I'm not going to publish it to GitHub because I have 2 minutes left. But what I would do now is I would publish this to GitHub. So what happens when it's in GitHub? Well, when it's in GitHub, it's on my repo. So here, if I go to this guy here, you can see up here I published my OpenFin Trader, which is the app I've been working on in GitHub. And it's the entire Angular application. This could have been Blazor, it could have been web components, it doesn't matter. So with drag and drop, WYSIWYG, starting with Figma and a design system, now I have something in Angular, a full app in GitHub that then I can go continue to work on. Now in this case, what I did as I continued to do some more things with data binding and whatnot, generated the code, added a few more things, whoops, and then I ended up in Visual Studio Code. This is the same thing that's in GitHub. My GitHub repo is Beres. You can go grab this yourself and look at it, so I'm not trying to hide anything here. But I do have this running OpenFin container with FDC3. I have two apps that I want to show. One is using .NET, one's using just Angular. The .NET one we just updated. We have an adapter that kind of adds a little on top of the OpenFin adapter, so it's FDC3 2.0. So if you're interested in that, it's up. We have it in NuGet, and we have our web ones up in NPM that you can grab. But here I've got this little, little display thing for sending intents, but I'm just going to move it down there because what I want to do is bring up my OpenFin Trader. So this is the application that I just built from Figma into App Builder, generated code in GitHub, added a little bit to, pull a few things together, but I added some analytics. We have another product called Reveal, which does self-serve BI, which is kind of cool. So this is a nice chart here. I can expand this out. I can do things like forecasting if I want. Then we do a quick forecast, and then maybe I want to change this, so I can go into edit mode, and I can actually, I don't want to look at customers. Let's look at loans and deposits over time. So I've got loans and deposits, and I can save this out and then, kind of do this thing. So we have a bunch of different things here that will help you accelerate what you're trying to build out. But the cool thing here is if I go to that screen, which I had called FDC3 Playground, I actually added another dashboard here. And what I'm doing is I'm sending view chart intents over to the cloud. This server is actually running in Azure, and it's receiving the intent, and then it's going to update the visualization of the dashboard based on the intent that it gets. So the internet's a little bit sluggish here, but there we go. It's going, getting the ticker. These are all fake tickers that my mock data made up. So that's kind of the idea there. So I did like a whole round robin thing. And then the second thing I want to show is that .NET adapter. Ignore the slowness because it's the internet. I didn't want to have a recorded video, but what I did here is to make this a little more consumable. And last night when I was mucking with this, I dragged this into OpenFin layouts, but I wasn't prepared to complete that demo. So here I've got my FDC3.2 adapter for .NET running, and this is an Angular app, the same thing I built in Figma, which I generated the code from, and now it is just using FDC3 with OpenFin container to talk back and forth and pass messages. So just another slick example of how this technology can work together, how you can build out like these micro apps then that get thrown into OpenFin and OpenFin layouts, and then it just uses channels and FDC3 to communicate. So with that, I'm out of time. And let's go back to our slide deck, and I will just say we're directly back there. We have the App Builder booth. Phil, our VP of Sales, is here. Konstantin, who runs our dev team, is here as well. He's flew in from Bulgaria, which is where we have a big office, as well as South America and Montevideo, and then, of course, Cranberry, New Jersey. So check us out, appbuilder.dev. And that's it. So thank you very much, and thanks, Mitra, for having us back at OpenFin, FinJS.